Hi, everyone. Today, me and Helevorn are going to be analyzing three Cradle of Filth songs: the Byronic Man from the 2006 album Thornography, Forgive Me, Father from the 2011 album Evermore Darkly, and The Death of Love from the 2008 album Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder, which was a concept album centered on the life and crimes of Gilles de Rais and his love for Joan of Arc. So our first question here is last time we discussed several themes. Okay, last time we discussed several themes characteristic of the Cradle of Filth's um, lyrics. Which of these themes are encountered in these particular three songs?
Well, I chose these three songs not only because they are very lyrically complex and thematically complex, but also because they are representative of Cradle of Filth's themes and their inspiration from 19th century English literature. So three of the themes that we encounter here, well, for the first one, for the Byronic Man, we're going to discuss about the Byronic hero, the type of male character which was very popular not only from its inspiration from the work of Lord Byron, but also one of the very popular types of characters ever since. We even encounter that kind of characters nowadays. Batman, for example, is a very Byronic hero if we think about it. So this is one typology of male character prominent in late romanticist literature and in Cradle of Filth's lyrics. And then in the next two songs, we're going to see two different types of femininity, which are also derived from Gothic literature, but also twisted in a way as to suit Cradle of Filth. So if many romantic and Gothic characters, female characters, come from the are found in the dichotomy between the pure and innocent woman and the demonic woman. Well, this is what we see here. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned shows the obsession of a priest with a woman whom he sees as a temptress. But in the way Cradle of Filth deconstructs it is that the priest is in fact the one who is obsessive and who becomes a voyeur, and it is everything is happening in his mind. So the woman, the parishioner that he obsesses about, she's not a demon, she's not a temptress. The demons are all in his head. And as for the pure and innocent woman, she becomes a warrior, Joan of Arc. So she's by no means a damsel in distress, but a force in herself. And her lover, or at least the man who loved her, Gilles de Rais, he was in love not with her beauty, not with her vulnerability, not even with her piousness, but really with her strength. And this is how she will be described in The Death of Love, the last song that we're going to analyze.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. And, this covers a wide range of topics that we can kind of see transmuted and transformed in your own work.
That is very true. I do have these types of characters myself, and I do enjoy playing with them, with the concepts as they were first created and as they appear in 19th century literature and then adapted to, well, different periods, to the medieval times, but also why not a modern interpretation? Because I don't think that, well, neither my writings nor Danny Filth's could have been written in the 19th century or in the medieval
Mm-hmm.
times.
Absolutely. So it's informed by modernity.
Exactly, yes.
So let's go ahead and talk about the first song.
Oh, yes. And for this, I'm going to share my screen in order to show you some lyrics. So the way we're going to do this, I'm going to show you lyrics. And then at the end of each song, we are going to also listen a fragment of that certain song. All right, here it is. So first, the Byronic Man. As lonely as a poet on the walls of Jericho, or the moon without the comfort of the stars, I am loath to know that a man without a soul is nothing but a spilt canopic jar. So this is, first of all, we see here from the title even that it is supposed to be an impersonation of a Byronic hero or a Byronic man. So, well, he's a man without a soul himself, a sort of a Dorian Gray, because he has given his soul to pleasure. So his promiscuous existence gives him an exciting earthly life, but he loses salvation and eternity. And even from the beginning of the song, we see here that it is given a sort of a mythical dimension by the mention of a biblical setting. And with the canopic jar, we again dive into that fascination with Orientalism that 19th century English literature had. So, well, the canopic jar, these are four types of urns which were used in ancient Egypt, each preserving one organ during the process of mummification. So each of the jars were filled with specific organs, and these organs would be needed in the afterlife. So a spilled canopic jar symbolizes incompleteness and loss of eternity, because those full canopic jars lead the soul into the realm of the dead, and he is given eternity and salvation. But the ones that are spilled, well, that is a man without a soul, a man lost in eternity. So it sort of makes this Byronic man a sort of a someone who made a pact with the devil, or a Dr. Faustus or a Dorian Gray.
I see. Yeah, like the image of the canopic jar seems to suggest that without a soul, he's just a bunch of organs on the floor, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yes, that's a great observation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here we see in more detail the sort of a devilish pact. I proved it, improved it, drove a sonnet right through it, and in this state of bliss, evil kissed with wet lips, pen-filled fingertips. So here we see that the poet fights with the pen, which is mightier than the sword, right? And well, he apparently makes a pact for immortalization, but not for himself and his soul, but for his art. So this is something that a Byronic hero would definitely do, isn't it? Because he is this sophisticated intellectual who is also very arrogant and cynical, and he thinks that he is superior to everyone else, and this is why he cannot adapt to society. But at the same time, he has this pride of his for the greatness of his work, and in this case, the poet for his art. And so he sells his soul and says, exciting new flames that my fame would claim for me, reciting back the almanac of travesties. So he's basically guilty of every sin in the book, and he makes the most of his fame, the one he has bought with his own soul. And this is why he asks in a different line, which circle of hell is mine when I arrive, in reference to Dante's Inferno, where each circle is holding a different category of sinners. So he has done so much, he's so immoral that he would fit basically anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the chorus. And this is a reference to the famous description of Lord Byron, coined by Lady Caroline Lamb, who was one of his lovers, who described him as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. And so Danny Filth paraphrases here, and he says, they call me bad, mad Caliban with manners, dangerous to know, a passing fad, taught in all debauch, in excess, and in canto. And this is one example of Danny Filth's dark humor and irony, because yes, first of all, it is clearly that this is a reference to Shakespeare's The Tempest, where Caliban is the half monster, son of a witch. So it suggests that not only is he that type of eccentric intellectual in the vein of Lord Byron, but he is also a wild and bestial type of man who is polished with courtly manners. So he's indeed a very dangerous person. And the irony in the last two lines is in reference to the vices and preoccupations of aristocrats, but the humor comes from the fact that it is seen from the rigid morality of the 19th century England, where once you are labeled as vicious, everything you do is blamable, even Canto, right? Because Canto is, in that enumeration of bad things that he does.
I see.
And then, fleeing grief from foreign maps, I still played vampire aristocrat, unloading my gun in hot, promiscuous laps. Then, shooting swans in a gondola, I tripped my foot on a fallen star, and there's nothing like a mouthful of Venetian tar to let you know just who you fucking are. So it is again a reference to Byron's travels to the Mediterranean shores, self-exiled because he found British morals too rigid. So he, like many other Bohemian intellectuals of the time, preferred those looser countries like Italy, Greece, and France. So there Byron goes and continues his sexual exploits, right? Unloading my gun in hot promiscuous laps in an erotic metaphor. And the vampire aristocrat, right? The mysterious and dangerous and handsome young man who just travels from place to place as if he had all the time in the world just to see the world and have any kind of experience imaginable. So here we see him in Venice as a sort of a Don Juan or Don Juan, to make another reference to Lord Byron. So he is brutally awakened to reality, and we see here this very surreal image with the I tripped my foot on a falling star, because he's so full of himself and so immersed in his own in self-admiration that when he falls from very high.
Mm-hmm.
So now on to the song. So we're going to listen to a bit of the song, and we're also going to hear Ville Valo, the singer of the Finnish band Him. It is a duet, a featuring. Perhaps I still play vampire aristocrat, looking my gun in hot for promiscuous laps. Shooting swans in a gondola. My foot on a fallen star, nothing like a master of Venetian. You know, master. Yes. So, well, here we see him as that entitled, whimsical aristocrat, shooting swans in a gondola, but he's heading the clouds in reality, and has unrealistic desires. And this is why we have that part with the patron saint heartache, because he's in fact heartbroken and misunderstood, and he masks it with eccentricity. So he brings heartache to himself and to others because of his unrealistic expectations. And then, the ever after you will hear my laughter, it points to his legacy, right? And then we saw the response that he gives to those accusations to go fuck their mothers on my grave, on his grave, the legacy once more.
Indeed. It was like I think during certain parts of the lyrics, it seems like it faded a little bit into the background, right? So like there's
Oh,
like a different sound design. Like I noticed that like during certain parts, I could definitely hear it a lot more like symphonically. I could hear like all the instruments and everything. And then was it just a computer or was it like the song? Because there were certain parts where you could barely hear anything. It was just really stretched out syllables, and then sometimes it just kind of faded into the background.
I don't think that's supposed to happen.
Okay, because I was a little bit confused. Yeah, it might be like a technical problem.
Oh, yeah, I wonder why. I wonder if is it the internet maybe? Because I could hear it just right.
Right? Like it was like, the part before Mad Caliban, that part was very, very hard for me to hear on for some reason. It was like really faded, and there were parts it sounded like it was coming through the mic, like not it wasn't through the computer.
Oh, is it something in the settings that I can change maybe?
I'm not sure because the rest of it was fine. After Mad Caliban, that part was fine.
Okay, then should we leave it like this then?
Yeah, I think so. It might just be an internet problem.
Yeah, maybe it was just an internet. Maybe, yeah, it has fluctuations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I think the settings are fine. So I guess it was the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, should we go to the next song?
Yes.
Okay, so the next song is Forgive Me, Father, I Have Sinned. So this is about a priest who forms a fixation or on a woman, on a parishioner, and his guilt leads him to see her as a seductress and a demoness. So it is about a man's fear of his own desires, and he casts the blame on the woman because he doesn't want to admit that it is his fault, and so he makes up fantasies with a demoness tempting him to give in to sin. And it is quite a psychological song, as we are going to see. It says, Forgive me, Father, I have sinned. Darkness put her painted claws in me again. Her vision drowns like service wine, whispered kisses so divine. I was blessed, but now I've come undone. So it is about the priest's fall from grace. And you see here the darkness is personified into a female character, her painted claws. And we imagine she has painted claws, right? So she is a woman who likes painting her nails, or someone conscious of her beauty and femininity. So this is how he portrays, the priest speaker portrays darkness. Storm clouds roll out overhead above their master, end of all flesh, end of all days. Love predicts disaster in her precious ways. I was burned, a sacerdotal soul, by the demon queen of my dreams. Infatuation turned to total control. Her rose was sweet, but her thorns were barbarous. So the dangers of love on the soul, this is what the storm clouds suggest, the emotional suffering and damnation go hand in hand here. And this is one of the Gothic tropes that we discussed last time, where love is always obsessive and destructive and overwhelming. And in the second part of the stanza with the demon queen, we again see here the female character as a dominatrix, infatuation turned to total control. So the male character loses any will when he's faced to her, and she's beautiful but dangerous, like a rose with barbarous thorns.
Mm-hmm.
And the chorus says, in the voice of an omniscient narrator, because until this point we had the priest speaking, and now the omniscient narrator comes and says, many never want to see, many never want to know the truth behind their fantasies, their deepest needs, let alone be shown them. So this is where it turns psychological, because this voice analyzes the behavior of the priest, who blames his own desires upon a fictional demon queen, instead of looking into his own mind and soul and realizing and coming to terms with the fact that these are his deepest needs, and this is why they manifest his fantasies. So it is not a supernatural vision, but in fact the depths of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have in 3 different instances, but I've put them all together. It is spoken in a female voice, and it is said as if the woman he loves or that he's infatuated with is speaking. But we're going to see here that it is not in fact her speaking, but the way in which the priest imagines her to be speaking, so as to, again, to pin his blame on her. She says, love me and worship me. I lavish you and ravish you, fulfill all wishes and fetishes too. So again, with lavish and ravish, as we are going to see further on. Then she says, love me and worship me. I'll nurture you and hurt you too. Fulfill all wishes for my sad Aladdin. So in his erotic fantasies, the woman beckons him to her, promising to fulfill his erotic needs. And his guilt manifests in the form of masochistic desires, because he wants to be hurt by her, to be ravished by her. And then we see again the references to the West's fascination with the Orient in the 19th century with Aladdin. And as we're going to see soon, with he compares her to a sandstorm in an hourglass. So this is also reminiscent of that Arabic setting that was so loved by the Romantics in the 19th century. And then she says, I'll grant you life beyond your ken, the envy of all other men. Whatever vice will make you spend eternity with me. So if she's a demon, she wants to make a pact with him for his soul, and she offers her the things he wants most, the envy of all other men and long life. And now he says, she comes to me like a sandstorm in an hourglass, a whirlwind of desire. I'm hypnotized to think beyond the pale, beyond heart-stopping eyes and sopping thighs. I'm wont to fail. A wicked spell cast over me, addicted to her utterly, despite the horrors that gestate beneath the beautiful. Again, we see the dangers of erotic desire, of love, and beauty, because he's completely under her control, this time by her, her beauty here is a wicked spell. And horrors are always lying beneath the beautiful. And this is the part that we're going to see. And the video, this will not be a lyric video, but an actual video where we are going to see the male character, the singer, will appear as the priest, and also in a sort of demonic himself. Okay. Yes. So here we see in the video two instances of these two characters, because we see the priest and the demon queen, the one with the snakes, and then we see that the roles are inverted, because we see the actual woman that he is infatuated with, and we see that he is in fact the demon who follows her. He is the stalker, the voyeur, the perpetrator, and he is in her room, and she actually does nothing at all apart from being beautiful and sleeping, but he's the one who is the creepy person who simply stalks her and has fantasies with her. So I think it is very interesting, this change of roles. It is one of my favorite videos by Cradle of Filth, if not my favorite, for these juxtapositions and plays and plays and metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this was Forgive Me, Father. And now on to the one with Joan of Arc, The Death of Love. So this is a more romantic song. It is a love song from start to finish. The imaginary dialogue between Gilles de Rais and Joan of Arc on the day of her execution. It is composed as a series of questions and questions and answers that they ask each other. And this is how it starts. Her penultimate sighs called softly on the kindling wind, her saintly eyes filling with tears, lifting with truth. And then a golden flash like the onset of heaven, leaving her screams breaking my heart, and in the grip of fire I knew the death of love. A motive in Cradle of Filth is the woman who is misunderstood by people and seen as someone who breaks religious norms. So we see this type of female character as a witch, and here as Joan of Arc. So she is punished for this, what is seen as a transgression, usually by death. And her lover suffers too, because it means the end of their relationship, so the death of love for him, who is heartbroken and will not know love again. So this is an important characteristic appearing in many of Cradle of Filth's songs. Usually, like I said, she is a witch, but here she is the Maid of Orleans. She's the pious woman who thinks, who truly believes that she was well, chosen by God, or that she is able to hear God's voice. So she is saintly, as he describes her here, her saintly eyes filling with tears. And so this is with, like I said, by command of the King of Heaven came the death of love. So the irony is in the fact that she has dedicated her life to God, but she is also martyred in the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dialogue. Gilles asks, where will you be when they tense for warfare? What will you see with your innocence there? Where will you be, my darling? Where will you be when they tense for warfare? And she says, where will you be where God is glorifying? There we will be between the dead and dying. Where will you be, my darling? Where will you be when God is glorifying? So her visions were used in the war, and after this, she is accused of heresy and witchcraft and executed by the very people who should have been grateful to her. So when God is glorifying, because they are celebrating victory and the burning of a witch, she's among the dead and dying being executed. Burning was the sunset like a portent of doom on the saintly Iron Maiden as she fell from her wound. But visions and ambition never listened to submission, as she was on a mission from the highest above. To lord upon the slaughter like a sword through hissing water, she arose where archers sought her for the death of love, the righteous death of love. So she is captured and she is tortured. So the saintly Iron Maiden is an instrument of torture, of the sinful as it was seen, or It can also be a metaphor for Joan, because she is saintly, she's maiden and dressed in plate armor, as we will see her described again. And now a very beautiful part, one that I love, is the one where we see why Gilles is in love with her, and we will see that it is very, very different from the love full of desire and eroticism that we saw in the previous song. The narrator says, Gilles adored her drama, her suit of pure white armor blazed against the English in a torrent of light. Framed amid the thick of fire, a flame, a Valkyrie, she made him click without desire, and in his eyes she swam a goddess. Their love is platonic, not erotic, and physically unconsummated. So Gilles idealizes her. He is filled with admiration for Joan. So even though she is this pure and innocent woman and pious woman, she's definitely not a damsel in distress, and she's not even passive in the way in which the female character was seen. I mean, the parishioner, right, was seen in the previous song. But it is her power that makes Gilles be in love with her. And then the last exchange, you see that the song changes from an objective third-person perspective, and then to first person when there is the dialogue between the two. And then he says, how will you breathe when their wheels are turning? How will you know if the sky is burning? Where will you be, my darling? How will you breathe when their wheels are turning? And she says, where will you be when Babel builds my fire? Will you not flee and label me pariah? Where will you be, my darling? Where will you be when they light my pyre? So how will you breathe when their wheels are turning? Again, is a reference to an instrument of torture, and the sky is burning to the fact that she was burned at the stake. And we remember that a powerful image of her burning at the stake. He sees her as flamed amid the thick of fire like a Valkyrie. So but still he is obviously concerned for her. But then her own concern is about if he will stand by her or if he will deny her, right? Will you not flee and label me pariah? And the Babel is the irrational mob that is punishing her. So, and the pariah, if if he would turn against her as well. And then we learn if he turned against her or not. It says, again, the narrator speaks, aligned with Joan in all that was enthroned and divine, he swore to score the crimes jackdaws poured on his dove, crimes he knew alone derived from minds of the blind. The church unfurled for murder, perched upon the death of love. So he sees her mission as completely divine, beyond the shade of a doubt. So he is aligned with her, and he is on her side even after she dies. He never renegates her. And moreover, he is portrayed as losing her mind after the death of Joan and the loss of his love. So he swore to score the crimes. So he swears to commit revenge, and he becomes a serial killer after this. We don't really know what happened with Gilles de Rais, but he was said to be well, pedophile and someone who would sacrifice children to Satan and would do a lot of satanic rituals. So he was a serial killer, as well, apart from being a nobleman, a military man, he was also a serial killer. So here we see the symbolism of birds, the jackdaws, which are birds of prey, and they represent the crowd and the church, right, who is perched upon the death of love for murder, again with perch a reference to birds, while the dove represents Joan, who represents purity. So crimes he knew alone derived from minds of the blind. In his mind, she is guilty of no crime, but the people are those who are blind to understand that she was in fact touched by divinity. And the last part of the song speaks about her very last moments alive. And she says, and even when she fought for breath, her words would leave a scar. For only in the grip of darkness will we shine amidst the brightest stars. So in Cradle of Filth's interpretation, these are the last words of Joan. They are really the last words of a martyr, because there has to be darkness and there has to be suffering in order to receive salvation, to save yourself and other people. So her last few words. Now we are going to listen to this part of the song. And again, it is the video. We won't see the lyrics, but I'm not sure if but you and our viewers can understand the lyrics because of the growls, but we have read them already. And so we are going to see, apart from the band, Gilles de Rais and Joan of Arc, of course. Here it goes. Right, I hope you enjoyed it, everyone.
Wow, it was amazing. I love the music videos and how you can see the band as well as people acting out the characters.
I'm really happy that you loved it. And yes, I love it as well. And these are very, very interesting portrayals of Gilles and Joan. And which one was your favorite? Well, we've only seen two.
I think I like the one with the priest a little bit more than the one with Joan and Gilles. I love both of them though, but the one with the priest really struck me in particular because of how the demoness looked like, you know, in her belly dancer outfit, which was another nod to Orientalism.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Exactly. There are so many layers, and that video is more layered and dynamic, indeed.
Especially with how the woman he's obsessing over isn't doing anything. And you can really see that because she's lying on a bed, you know, dressed in white, and she's not even awake yet. But then he's the one looking at her and, you know, thinking about all these things and having these fantasies.
Yes, exactly. And earlier in the video, we see that she is coming to confess to him, and he's having those fantasies while she's confessing to him. So we can imagine that she's speaking her sins, and he's imagining her saying those things with, I'll nurture you and hurt you too. So this is what he hears when she is confessing.
Definitely. And we can definitely kind of see this a little bit with Aiden and Reinweg, right?
Yes, that's true. The difference being that Aiden is in the perverse kind of priest, even though, well, he does have a similar guilt, because in a way he does feel perverse because he has never had such vivid fantasies as he has after he meets Ranveig. So,
I
yes, I think
see.
that kind of exceeds his expectation.
But he's not as angsty as the priest here. I don't think he feels that much guilt, right? Because I mean, he's not envisioning anything really dramatic or anything. And I think Ryan, and I don't think he has any visions either of a demoness or anything like that.
Oh yes, no, it's definitely not as extreme, but well, that part where he sort of blames her for, in a way, he admires the fact that she is seductive, but at the same time he blames her for being seductive. We find that as well in Aiden, though of course to a much lesser extent, because he can get over it and he fights against it. He doesn't want to have these thoughts about her, but because of his sheltered upbringing and his strictly religious expectations of a woman, he sort of struggles with the fact that she is quite sensual.
Mm-hmm. That's true. If Eyolf was a woman, though, I think she would be more sensual than Reinvig, because I don't really think Reinvig is that sensual compared to Eyolf.
He's the demon queen.
I know he is definitely, and he's so openly, he's so open about it, which would really shock Aiden. But Reinvig is much more subtle, I think, and I think she's afraid to be that provocative.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great difference between them indeed, because Ranveig is young and she's unmarried and she is a woman, so she cannot afford to be that demonstrative in terms of her sexuality. And I don't think she wants to, because she's not really as sensual as Eyolf is. So yes, definitely. But then Eyolf is also a combination between the the demon queen of everyone's dreams and the Byronic Man, in the way that it is described there, because in that song he was portrayed as a sort of a Dorian Gray kind of character, so who pretends to be an aristocrat and just flies from flower to flower in order to have fun. So, and a witty and scandalous person. So from this point of view, Eyolf could be seen as that as well. But then
True.
you know who my real Byronic hero is.
Right. And how would you say he contrasts with Eyolf as Byronic heroes? I think the main difference is Eyolf is not gloomy, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that there can be different sides to the Byronic hero as they appear in Byron's poem. So, well, Ingvar is the one who is gloomy and cynical and world weary and has that intellectual sophistication that makes him feel arrogant and superior to everyone else. And he's also very self-destructive, and he has that death wish and those he has some past trauma, and Il has some past trauma, but then Ingvar's sort of morphs into a guilt that makes him have masochistic fantasies, sort of like the guilt of the priest in Forgive Me,
Mm-hmm.
Father, whereas Eyolf is definitely not as tormented as Ingvar is. So Eyolf is rather the one who gets over his trauma and then gets to play roles, play the aristocrat, and just uh, have fun, live for hedonism. But Ingvar is the dark side of the Byronic hero.
That's true. He definitely is, since he has all of the traits. And you said Aiden was a kind of Byronic hero, but I think without the extreme angst, because he does have angst, but he doesn't have the violent urges or the masochism.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So he is, to a lesser extent, so apart from the intellectual sophistication, and the gloominess and the psychological depth, and the fact that he likes to sit and ponder about death and other and about people's behaviors and patterns in society. Apart from that, he doesn't fit, not nearly as much as Ingvar, because he also doesn't have past trauma. Really, I mean, yes, he doesn't get along with his father, but that's not, well, not nearly as bad as what Ingvar and Dale go through.
True. Well, I guess another trauma that happens to Aiden is how he's kidnapped and taken as a
Oh,
slave, right?
oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But that's a prison trauma, not a past one. Yes.
That's true, yeah. And I guess the fact that his father was treating him badly, and I guess Merwin died.
Yeah, that's right. But then, yeah, he obsesses a lot with death, even though death was not so, out of the ordinary as it is nowadays. I mean, the death of a young person and of a young mother. So, but yes, he lingers a lot on it, given the frequency with which these things occurred. So, because he is
Hmm.
this gloomy person himself, he definitely inherited that from Merwin. So.
That's true. Do you think Merwin is Byronic?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, apart from the gloominess and the silence, well, I'm not sure. The ironic here is more like the strong silent type. So it's definitely Ingvar that fits into all that.
True. I guess Merwin is silent, but she's not really strong in the conventional sense because she's not active. Like she's just at home most of
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's not something that people would see as strong or heroic, not even anti-heroic, really.
Just very normal, I guess. Very homebody, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, very strange, but not doing something out of the ordinary, just a strange woman.
Right. And she doesn't go on adventures either, so people won't see her that often.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, women were generally not seen that often outside the house in medieval times, but yes, Merwin, yeah, definitely doesn't go.
Hmm. Do you think she's one of the types of women we talked about today in the songs? You know, either well, she's definitely not the seductress. We can conclude that. But do you think she has a little bit of the pure woman?
Well, yes, I think she does. I think she does. Maybe um, to talk about another uh, famous pure woman from 19th century literature, right? Tess of the D'Urbervilles. So someone who can be seen as a whore from the outside, but also as very saintly from a different perspective. So yes,
Hmm.
in this sense, yes, I think she is, because she has an affair while she's married, and she can be seen as both.
That's true, right? Exactly. And I think Aiden himself, he never really gets confirmation that she, actually had an affair to have him, right? Though he kind of knows that she had an affair, but he doesn't know that that person was his father, his real father.
Yes, exactly. And he doesn't know exactly how it happened. He doesn't really see her as that kind of person to do this. I mean, well, she's not like what he imagines as a um, adulteress, because there was that stigma on especially on women who had extramarital affairs, and he would imagine that that kind of person, the typical fallen woman. But then Merwin is very saintly in all other ways.
So he
So sort of
struggles
her
with this.
complexity is sadly lost on Aiden, because he doesn't see her in all aspects of her personality and behavior. He doesn't really see the rebellious her, although she is quite rebellious in the story that I'm publishing right now on tap as the Enchanted Isles, although not that kind of rebellious, but she's quite an out of the ordinary woman.
Right. I remember seeing this on DeviantArt years ago, and basically, it's a very subtle type of rebellion. It's something that people don't expect her to do, but it's nothing dangerous or really adventurous compared to, let's say, what Ingvar experiences. It's not like she's going whale hunting.
Oh yes, compared to Ingvar, yeah, definitely not. But at the same time, well, maybe it is quite it can be dangerous because she takes her kid out in the storm on the edge of the sea. So maybe that's kind of a thrill, an extreme sport.
Compared to how mundane her life usually is,
Yeah,
especially.
definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
And to how people imagine her when they usually see her in church, all pious, they don't imagine that she runs away at night and walks on walls and stands on the shore in the storm and things like that.
Has she ever thought about running away?
I don't think she knows where she would go or what exactly she would do, because I think that she is sort of afraid that she would fall into another type of captivity, so
Mm-hmm.
what can she actually do to really be free? I mean, only if she were to get a lot of money and buy herself an estate, but then she's not really knowledgeable about
Mm-hmm.
economic affairs.
That's very true, unfortunately. And, Halvard never came to pick her up, unfortunately.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, because he's the one with the economic know-how. I guess if she got to know him better and they actually lived together, maybe she could have learned more stuff about that.
Oh
The
yes,
economic stuff,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I really think that she would like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and other female characters that were influenced by the types of female characters we talked about today are Valdis and Villy, especially her relationship with her husband Villy, right? And Reinvig, as we talked about.
Yeah, that's true. So Villy and Valdez, yeah, they could make a 19th century romance really well because it is a romance full of obsession, and she's the one who inspires obsession in her.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that she is this type of seductress, or definitely not the way Eyolf is, and not even Ranveig. So she's not seen as very attractive to other people. So it is mostly in her attitude with which she wins him over.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Like people even suspected that she used love potions on him, right? Because he was that obsessive. And other people found her strange, especially due to her behavior.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But he is so attracted to her that yes, people believe that. Well, a wicked spell was cast over him to quote, "Forgive me, Father, I have sinned." So yes,
And then, of
addicted to her
course,
utterly.
yes, exactly. How about Mergu and Elisar? Like Mergu is not a seductor at all. I mean, he is not comparable to Eyolf. He's just being himself, but that's enough to make Elisar pretty obsessed, right?
Yes, I think that's true. That is a more normal or normal well, a non-gothic type of love, I think, because it's quite sweet and natural, and it's not full of obsession and overwhelming. I mean, yeah, maybe it's overwhelming, especially for Mungu, who is very emotional. He has this kind of temper, and he idealizes Elisar a lot. And for Elisar, okay, it is a source of guilt in a way, but then he's going through a bad time, so he has guilt about a lot of things during those weeks that they spent together. So it's not just Murgu, but yeah, I think uh, it is a strong love, but it's not really the gothic type, which is kind of toxic and everyone
Mm.
suffers.
Yeah, that's why it's dark, right? Because it's so dramatic and so many people are suffering. I mean, no one benefits from these kind of situations, really.
Oh yes, exactly, exactly. So I guess that fits with a lot of my characters, with my couples, Ingvar and Dale and Villian Valdez and even Ranveig and Aiden, though they can still be redeemed.
How about the modern AU of Eyolf and Ingvar? Do you feel like they are more gothic or less gothic? Are they more like independent of each other or are they even more obsessive?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I'm not sure how to put it. I mean, I think that well, they don't behave. as obsessively, I think, because they accept from the beginning that they want to be together, and then they get together, so they sort of have a more normal relationship due to the fact that, well, nowadays, especially in a country like Norway, they wouldn't, I don't know, have any guilt over it or something. Even Ingvar, who is very reluctant to have relationships, he knows that these things are okay and are normal. I mean, being with someone and living with someone, it's normal. So even if he wouldn't be with anyone else, when he realizes that it's Ale that he wants to be with, he wants to try. But well, Ingvar, being the arrogant and distant and silent person, of course, a lot of bad things derive from there and come between them. And Ilv being Ulve being the temperamental kind of person, he has a limit. And when these things clash, we can imagine that it's not as smooth, but I dare say it is smoother than in the medieval times.
Definitely. So there's no equivalent to the Midsummer Nights scene, right?
No, not really, not as dramatic. I dare say the whole novel is a lot less dramatic than Lucky Wolf in every way imaginable.
That makes sense. Yeah, but there is blackmail, as you told me.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. I really wanted to keep that. So in a way, Equilibrium Point will be a mirror of Lucky Wolf, but a lot less dramatic because it is well adapted to our reality.
Exactly. Will it be around the same length?
Yes, I think so. I think it will, or I don't know, maybe even longer. I don't really know
Mm-hmm.
right now. It
Right.
can be longer. I think about 100 pages in the format in which I'm writing, which will make like maybe 200 pages in book format.
Wow. Wow. I think that was about the same for Lucky Wolf, right?
Yeah, it's well, 20 pages less.
I see. Great. I can't wait for it to be released on Tapas.
Thank you so much. I think we'll have to discuss about that book in a separate podcast. There is a lot
Definitely.
to say.
Do you want to do the podcast before Equilibrium comes out or after?
I think we can do one before as a teaser.
Yes, definitely. And we should have more art for it as well for the teasers.
Yes, yes. I cannot wait because I've only just started illustrating this story, so more will follow.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was really informative, and I love the music and all the images that are in the lyrics. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy that you enjoyed it because it's definitely my favorite band. So I'm having a blast having these discussions and close readings.
Are we going to be reviewing more songs in a future Cradle of Filth podcast, or maybe should we jump to another band? What do you think?
Well, we have to talk about Elizabeth Bathory because she is a fascinating character in their interpretation, and there are some parallels to Valdez. So I think we'll have to talk about her as well.
That's true. Yeah, I remember that we had actually had her on the cover, on the thumbnail last time, and we never got to talk about her song in detail.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we should have a few more podcasts about the Cradle of Filth.
Yes, that's awesome. I love it.
Yes, and then we can have Finn Troll and the other bands.
Yes, we'll go on to folk metal and Viking metal.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.